Now, here's something scary. You're hanging in the air at an altitude of 30,000 feet. Frightening? Okay, let me make it better. The altitude is the same, but you're inside a large metal tube of an aircraft. Your flight is a really long one, and now, 6 cups of water later, you feel the urge to visit the bathroom. But the line is so long. Suddenly, a rather geeky thought bubbles up in your mind. Each of these people is going to flush the toilet after using it. But how can a plane carry so much water? And where does all that waste go? Surely it doesn't get dumped mid-flight upon pre-selected cities along the way, splattering all over the ground and… Okay, that's enough. One pilot has revealed the secret. All the waste goes through special plumbing to the rear of the plane. There, it's stored in sealed compartments. When the plane arrives at its destination, the ground crew removes all that waste. On a long-haul flight, toilets can be flushed more than 1,000 times, which creates up to 320 gallons of waste. Now, about that water. Have you ever seen a toilet bowl filled with water on a plane? No. That's because on a plane, you use a vacuum toilet. It's not your regular home toilet bowl filled with water. When you flush this good old toilet, a siphon drains the bowl and gravity then carries the water further into the sewer system. But this approach won't work on an aircraft because it's moving. The water would splash out through the whole flight, especially when the plane is flying through a region of turbulence. But if there's no water, you can't use gravity or siphon to empty the toilet bowl. Instead, when you flush, a valve opens in the sewer line, and the vacuum pulls the waste out of the bowl into a special tank. And since the vacuum does all the work, there's almost no need for water, or rather bright blue sanitizing liquid they use in planes. That's why such a system needs just half a gallon of fluid or even less for one flush. In comparison, a water-saving toilet uses 1.6 gallons, and a regular toilet needs 5 gallons of liquid. Okay, we figured out how planes deal with all that waste accumulating during the flight. But let's imagine another situation, a cracked cockpit windshield. The thing is, such a windshield consists of 2 panes of thick glass with a plastic layer for heating in between. Either of these panes can hold the full pressure if something happens to the other. So even if a windshield cracks, the airplane remains safe. This happens very infrequently, but when it does, pilots usually descend to reduce the pressure on the windshield and, if necessary, change their itinerary. Okay, now let's speak about what we can do if there's a dangerous snake in the cockpit. Now, you might say I'm making this up, or I saw it in that Samuel L. Jackson movie, but it was a real situation. A South African pilot had flown a small plane with 4 passengers to an altitude of 11,000 feet when he noticed something that was, shall we say, by no means supposed to be inside, a cobra slithering under his seat. For a second, he was just staring at the reptile. Then, not wanting to cause panic, the pilot very calmly told his companions about the unticketed stowaway. The plane had to make an emergency landing. In this case, the pilot decided to be honest with his passengers. But sometimes, pilots choose to replace the words that make certain people nervous, like turbulence, with other, much more innocent expressions. And if you want to be in the know, pay attention to the following signs. If a pilot tells the cabin crew to sit down, a patch of bumpy road is ahead. Another expression you should be on the lookout for is, "We're flying through an air pocket." This air pocket is just another word for the winds jostling your plane from different directions. But here's the thing, the term air pocket causes way less panic than turbulence. And there's also the area of weather. This phrase usually means heavy rain or a thunderstorm not far from a flying plane. So don't be surprised if your captain says, "There's an area of weather ahead, we're going to fly around it." Oh, and since we started on the mysterious language pilots use, here are some more examples. You can overhear a pilot saying, "George is flying the plane." And no, they don't mean their colleague. That's how the plane's autopilot system is called. George is programmed to follow a certain route, taking into consideration the weather conditions, turbulence, and altitude. Pilots normally use the autopilot after reaching cruising altitude or after flying for more than 10 hours. That's when they're expected to rest. Sometimes you may overhear that there's a pilot in the jump seat. It's not a rare occasion when an off-duty pilot or other flight personnel takes a jump seat when flying back to their home base. Federal Aviation Administration inspectors can also travel in fold-up seats. Some airlines may even offer jump seats to pilots working for other companies. Also, if you were wondering, there's no connection between the jump seat and actually jumping out of the plane itself. Now, if your first flight has arrived late and you're in a mad rush to catch your connecting flight, you're called a runner. You might overhear crew members or ground staff saying, "Runners are on the way." It means you're waiting for some transfer passengers. Unfortunately, if a flight has a strict departure time, it may leave without runners. Now, if you hear a pilot saying "pan, pan," it's not a great sign. Trouble is on the way. Pilots use this term in their communication with air traffic controllers. This is the signal, which means that something has gone wrong with the flight and the cockpit crew needs immediate attention. When other pilots who are using the same radio frequency hear this signal, they stop all their communication and let the pan-pan pilot get their message through. 359er. Nah, it's not some mega secret code. It's the way pilots pronounce certain numbers in their pilot English. Tree stands for 3, 5 for 5, and niner is used instead of 9. Such pronunciation helps to avoid radio miscommunications and the confusion caused by similar-sounding numbers. We're just finishing some paperwork. If you hear the captain saying this phrase, it doesn't mean you're in for a delay. Finishing paperwork usually means revisiting the flight itinerary, checking the plane's weight and balance, or even waiting for the ground staff to prepare the flight's logbook. The final approach means a bit different things for pilots and flight attendants. The cabin crew speaks of the final approach when the plane is nearing the final part of the descent. For pilots, the final approach means that the plane is already aligned with the runway and they don't need to maneuver or make additional turns. If a pilot refers to a ferry flight, F-E-R-R-Y, they speak about a situation when an empty plane with no passengers or cargo on board gets flown from one place to another. For the cabin crew, it's the time when they can relax. Ferry flights may happen when there's a technical problem with an airliner and pilots need to bring it back to its home base. But even if the flight is full, the crew still has an opportunity to rest. Some Boeing jets have a place where crew members can relax during their shift. The door to this safe haven looks like any other covered door. But once you open it, you'll see a narrow staircase leading to a small room with 2 beds separated by curtains. There's also some place for staff to hang their uniforms. By the way, some pilots say they don't like it when people clap when the plane lands. They say they aren't doing anything special since it's just their job. You don't clap for the mail carrier when they deliver your mail, do you? That's a rhetorical question one of them asks. You're also not supposed to tip your pilots, even if you really want to, because it's weird, as some of them admit. The whole tipping aspect is new in the flying industry. And while tipping flight attendants is becoming more common, who would have thought? Giving money to pilots is kind of frowned upon. That's it for today. So hey, if you pacified your curiosity, then give the video a like and share it with your friends. Or if you want more, just click on these videos and stay on the bright side.